Welcome to the brain. This is for AP Psychology, updated 2024. Let's get started. Okay, just for fun, take a moment and think about different animals' brains. What are the major differences? Does it matter? We've always, think that humans are the most intelligent, and they are, but don't discount the intelligence of other animals. Dolphins have very good brains. Dolphins have language skills. They can't speak like we do, but then again, nobody can speak like we do, and they don't have hands like we do. Elephants have great memories. Their brains are bigger, but their bodies are bigger. Dogs, it depends on the breed. But one thing that's important about the human brain, and we'll talk about it later, is the frontal lobe right here in the front. This is the front of the brain. And that is something that humans can do better than anything, is to think about the future. Okay? All right, just something to think about, moving right along. So we are going to talk about ways that we study the brain. I made the most important ones big, and how do I know what's important? Based on what does College Board say? So they say including EEG and fMRI, but that doesn't mean that there can't be others. Okay? So lesions and tumors, EEG. I'm going to talk about all of these, but focus on the EEG and the fMRI and lesioning. Okay? All right, moving right along. Okay, so this is important because it kind of goes along with lesioning. And lesioning is basically when you damage your brain. Phineas Gage, this is just a story. He was working on the railroad back, I think, at 1840s, okay, a long time ago. And he was tapping around with dynamite because, they like to blow up rocks to make room for the railroads. And this metal rod that he was using, he was just going tap, 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 tap. And he detonated some dynamite on accident. Kaboom! And it went behind his eye, destroyed his frontal lobe, and the bar did not stay there. It landed 40 yards away. Now, that's not even the most interesting part of the story. The most interesting part of the story is that he survived. Phineas Gage survived. So by studying Phineas Gage, we learned a couple of things about the brain back then. We learned that that part of the brain is not absolutely essential for survival. You could destroy your frontal lobe and still live. However, he had major seizures, electrical storms in the brain. He also, when they asked him basic questions like, what's 2 + 5? Like, no problem, 7. What's the big deal? But when they asked Phineas, what are you going to do later? And he said, I don't even understand the question. What do you mean? The frontal lobe is the part of your brain that thinks about the future. And Phineas wasn't able to do that. He also became an alcoholic because the frontal lobe is that part of your brain that tells you to chill out to relax and chill out, not in a relaxing way, but like you're about to get into a fight with somebody and you say, not right now, and it's not worth it. That's what your frontal lobe does. Okay. All right. So what I want you to understand, and if you're taking notes, this is good stuff here. Lesioning is when the brain gets damaged, either on purpose in a laboratory or from a stroke. A stroke is when your brain doesn't get enough blood, and then it starts damaging that way. It's not getting nutrients and oxygen, so that part of the brain gets damaged. Tumors can damage a part of the brain. Okay? So one thing you have to be able to do in this class is say, what's going to happen? What are the behavioral changes that happen when you damage a specific part of the brain? And you'll see what I mean when I show you the questions. By the way, that's a squirrel. All right, moving right along. All right, you need to know what this is. And EEG, the first E stands for electro. The second E stands for enceph, which either means brain or head. I'm not sure. Gram means to measure. This machine, this electrodes, measure brain waves. So it knows if you're in deep sleep, if you're dreaming, if you're awake, if you're meditating. It also knows if you're having a seizure. Let me play a video for you.
The first attempts to visualize brain function began with the electroencephalogram, or EEG. In an EEG, tracings of electrical impulses from the surface of the head can reveal gross functional changes associated with seizures, as seen here, and sometimes with tumors, strokes, infections, or other injuries.
So the EEG is good for studying brain activity. Okay. All right, moving right along. I don't think this is important. I've only, but a CAT scan is like a circular X-ray. It's good for looking for tumors. It's good for looking to see what the brain looks like. It's good for looking at broken legs and stuff. It's, I think CAT scans go back to the 60s. It's reasonably old. MRI is more important nowadays, but there are still CAT scans in hospitals, and they're still used. Here's an example, and look at that tumor, okay? So CAT scans are good at looking at the pictures of the brain. The MRI is important. If you're a Grey's Anatomy fan, you see these all the time. The MRI uses magnets to take a good picture of different slices of the brain. And you could take a scroll mouse and go forward or backward to look at different slices of the brain. It's not good at knowing which parts of the brain are active or not active. It's only good for taking pictures. It doesn't study function. Okay? And it's excellent and superior at looking at tumors or other forms of lesions in the brain damage and stuff like that. Okay? And just for fun, a pug MRI. Okay, moving right along. All right. This is not on the list, but I find it so interesting I want to teach it, and maybe they'll throw something at you. PET scans are you drink a nuclear substance or you get injected with it, and you can use it to look for certain neurotransmitters. Okay? Like, for example, this down here, I believe they're looking at dopamine. This is a normal brain. This is a meth abuser. And it shows that the brain is all messed up, really, as far as processing, looking at dopamine, for example. Here's another one. A normal brain and a brain that's depressed. Much less blood flow, much less brain activity. Okay? And this is a normal brain. This is a cocaine abuser 10 days after not using cocaine. And notice how the brain shuts down. Think of this as dopamine, okay? Your brain is like, I don't need to produce dopamine because you're doing all this cocaine, so your brain gets lazy. Even after 100 days of not using, your brain is still not back to normal. So so don't do cocaine because your brain's going to get lazy. Okay? All right. So this is just a little summary. Now, the fMRI is on the list of ones you need to know, and it should be. The fMRI, it takes a great picture just like an MRI does, but it also shows brain function. like a PET scan. See all the colors? That's brain activity. So if I showed you something scary, your amygdala would light up. Your amygdala is the part of your brain that deals with fear. So if I show you something scary, that's your amygdala. And it lights up, brain activity. If I show you anything at all, your visual part of your brain will light up. Okay? Other things light up too, don't get me wrong. I mean, your brain is active all over the place. All right, fMRI, the F stands for functional. Functional. Okay? All right, so the MRI just shows you a picture of the brain, but a functional MRI shows brain function, like which parts are active and which parts aren't. All right, moving right along. Okay, answer this question. I'm not going to read it to you. Go ahead and answer it. All right, so Dr. Jones wants to, which scans are looking at brain activity? The answer is C. Okay, a CAT scan doesn't show brain activity, so that rules out A, B, and D. That leaves you with C. These two do show brain activity. All right, moving right along. All right, read that. The answer is A, EEG. Okay. Remember to pause before I give you the answer if you're not on Edpuzzle. Okay, let's get moving. So I want you to know that the hindbrain is down low near your neck. The hindbrain is down here. I also want you to know this, and this is important. The lower you go on your brain, the closer to your neck, the dumber or the least evolved that part is. The hindbrain is just basic heart rate, breathing, balance. If you were to replace your hindbrain with that of, say, a crocodile, it would almost work because that part of the brain is like 1,000,000 years old. As you go up, especially forward, the brain is the newer part of the brain. It becomes more evolved. Okay? All right, write down the red. If you really want to draw that, hit pause and draw it. So keep in mind, I'm going to ask you what would happen if you damage a part of the brain. So let's look at the medulla. The medulla is in the neck, basically, very close to the reticular formation, if you're familiar with that. That's consciousness. The medulla deals with breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, basic biological processes. The cerebellum, and I'm using a fancy word, procedural movement. Procedural movement is stuff that you do automatically without thinking about it. It's your autopilot. Procedural movement is like you're walking. Left, right, maybe even balancing, playing a video game. If you're playing on an Xbox or PS5 or PS4, there's a lot of things that you're doing automatically. That's your cerebellum. After you've driven a car for a year, there's a lot of things you do without thinking about it. You're using your cerebellum. If you're a musician, the first several times you play a song, it's forced, it doesn't sound good. After you've played a song 20 times, it starts to sound good. And you don't even think about it, you just play it. Okay? So let me ask you this. What would happen if you damaged your medulla? What would happen if you damaged your cerebellum? Right? All right, moving right along. So medulla oblongata, involved in blood pressure, heart rate, breathing, basic biological processes. Cerebellum, which means little brain, by the way, fine muscle movements, and balance. Driving a car, walking, chewing your food, aiming a gun, controlling an Xbox controller. Okay. I don't know if this means anything to you, but Miss cerebellum. Okay, moving right along. All right. Difficulty in typing smoothly on a keyboard would most likely result from damage to the what? When you are typing, you are on autopilot. You're not thinking about what, all right, where is A? If you know how to type, you don't even think about it, you just know. Okay? The answer is cerebellum. You damage your cerebellum, your autopilot's gone and you can't type. That's why when you type your notes, you don't learn it as good as when you handwrite your notes, because you're on autopilot. You're not processing enough. I'm not dogging you for typing your notes. I'm saying that you're going to learn more if you handwrite it. All right. Which of the following would most likely result from an injury to the medulla? The answer is you're dead. You are dead ski. Okay? You're dead. Okay? Heart rate, breathing, you damage your medulla, you're dead. Okay? All right, moving right along. Which of the following is a brain imaging technique that produces the most detailed picture of brain structure? All right, you want to take a picture of the brain, a really good one, you're going to use, the answer is B. A CAT scan isn't bad, but MRI is better. PET scan, you're not really taking a picture of the brain, you're studying brain activity. You wouldn't look for a tumor, I don't think, using a PET scan. Maybe you could, I don't know. All right, that is a very old meme. All right, moving right along. All right, write this down if you need to. Reticular activating system deals with consciousness. If you damage this, you will be in a coma. So remember, you damage your medulla, you're dead. You damage this, you're in a coma. All right, hit pause if you need to, moving right along. All right. This question, you may not, if you haven't done research methods, you're not ready for it yet. But it's talking about operational definitions. You need to understand that how do you define, how do you measure reticular activating system activity? How do you define activity? That's what an operational definition is. So you go with the most easiest to measure, something that could be put on a graph. And the answer is, boom, heart rates before and after the reticular activating system was stimulated. That's the kind of question you're going to see in 2025. It's the sciencey kind of questions. And it helps to know what, it's nice that won't be the first time you saw the word reticular activating system. Okay? All right, moving right along. Okay, write this down. Your thalamus is the switchboard. Think of this old-timey operator. Back a long time ago, if you wanted to make a call, you would call the operator first and say, please connect me to this person. And they would literally take the cord and connect you with somebody else. Well, that's what your thalamus does. It sends messages from one part of your brain to another, mostly sensory messages. Okay, like hearing, eyesight, All right, sorry, I said no because that was my dog messing with me. All right, moving right along. The limbic system. I don't think drawing this would be very helpful, but you need to understand that the limbic system deals with your emotions. Anger, fear. But it deals with other things too. All right, moving right along. Very important. All right. The hypothalamus. It controls your glands and your hormones. I don't know if that's good enough of a definition, glands and hormones. But think about what glands do. Glands secrete, squirt hormones. Now, what are hormones? You should know a few hormones. Testosterone, estrogen, adrenaline. Those are hormones. Oxytocin is produced by the hypothalamus. I learned that today. Your glands, all of your glands produce hormones. Insulin is produced by the pancreas. Testosterone is produced by testicles and ovaries. Adrenaline is produced by adrenal glands. So the hypothalamus controls all of that. It also controls your hunger. So a college textbook said this. It controls the 4 F's: fight or flight, feeding, and fornication, sexual desire. Okay? All right, moving right along. So the hypothalamus controls all of these glands. Now, do you need to memorize all these glands? As far as I could tell, the pituitary is the only one that you need to know, and I haven't told you what that is. But I do want to show you a video. So remember, the hypothalamus controls feeding. So I want to show you a video on that.
For years, we followed the story of Alexis, whose fight against a brain tumor left her with an insatiable appetite and life-threatening weight gain. Here's a reminder.
When Alexis was born, she was the happiest baby. It was a normal life up until she was 9 years old. Once we got the MRI done, they told us right then that Alexis had a mass in her brain and that surgery was the only way to remove it. To tell your daughter that she has a brain tumor and that they have to operate was probably the hardest thing we've ever had to do. Her body makes her body believe that she's truly starving to death, and it holds on to anything and everything that she eats. She's gained about 150 pounds in 2 years.
Alexis, you have to promise me that when you get the surgery and you're feeling good, you come back and we're going to go shopping, okay?
Alexis did have bariatric surgery. Now in a doctor's exclusive, her family is revealing what happened and how Alexis is doing currently. It's been a little over 6 months since she had the gastric surgery. Her family was hoping would stop her rapid weight gain. Of course, the question we all have is, how's Alexis today? Well, let's have a look.
How much weight has she lost since the surgery?
She's lost about 50 pounds.
50 pounds. I mean, I can look at you and tell. Do you feel different?
I feel like I'm getting little bits and pieces of the old Alexis back, the playful, fun girl that feels better.
Alexis.
Okay, I wanted to give you a visual on something that can happen if your hypothalamus is damaged. If you have a tumor on your hypothalamus controls your hunger. Not only can it make you hungry, but it can also give you the feeling of satiety, which is satisfaction, like I don't need any more. Have you ever pigged out and you just got this sense, I've had enough, I don't need any more food? You may ignore that sensation, but your hypothalamus gives you that feeling that I've had enough. And if you have a tumor and it gets damaged, then you'll never feel that feeling. The girl Alexis had a tumor on her hypothalamus, and she never got she was constantly hungry. I mean, I don't know exactly, they didn't say, but a tumor in your hypothalamus could make you hungry all the time, or it could damage the part of your hypothalamus that says, I'm never satisfied. I mean, I don't know which one it is. It depends on the part of the hypothalamus. Okay. So these are two hormones that you need to know for the class. Maybe not this chapter, but ghrelin stimulates hunger. Leptin suppresses hunger. So theoretically, if you were to take leptin and put it in your blood, you may not be hungry. I don't know if that's what it is or not. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they've tried it, but ghrelin makes you hungry. Leptin suppresses it. Okay. So again, your hypothalamus can suppress hunger, but it can also stimulate hunger. All right, moving right along. All right, write this down. The hippocampus. It definitely deals with memories. What it does is consolidation. Consolidation is the conversion of short-term memory to long-term memory. And it works, the hippocampus does its work while you are dreaming, while you are in REM sleep. If you damage the hippocampus, you will be like Dory the fish. You will not be able to form new memories. Now, I'm not talking about you forgot the past. I'm talking you won't be able to remember new memories. Okay? Moving right along. Here's my girlfriend, Amy G. Dawa. She's pretty scary. The amygdala is the part of your brain that triggers when it sees something scary. So if you're in your backyard and you see a snake, that's your amygdala. Some of you might be like, wait a minute, I thought the hypothalamus did fear. It was one of the 4 F's. Let me explain. Both the hypothalamus deals with hormones like adrenaline. The amygdala deals with neurotransmitters. They both do the same thing, but the amygdala happens faster. So it takes a minute for adrenaline to kick in, but the amygdala, it happens now. So if you're driving a car and you have to slam in your brakes, that's your amygdala, not your hypothalamus. Okay? All right, moving right along. Oh, and Phineas Gage, the guy with the bar through his head, the frontal lobe tells the amygdala to chill out. So his amygdala was free to just go fear, fear, danger, danger. That's one reason he became an alcoholic. Okay. The pituitary gland secretes growth hormone. It is the master gland. So, what would happen if you damaged your pituitary? Well, if you don't secrete enough growth hormone, you might be a dwarf. However, if you secrete too much growth hormone, you might be a giant. All right, moving right along. So, this is the tallest man that ever lived. His name is Robert Ludlow. And here's Shaq standing next to his replica. This woman, there's nothing, she's like the second tallest woman in Brazil or something. I don't know anything about her. Her boyfriend is 5'5", So I just thought it was an interesting picture to show what happens when you get a lot of growth hormone. And growth hormone is secreted when you're sleeping. If you've ever had little brothers or sisters and it seems like they grew overnight, maybe they did. Okay. All right. All right. Read that. The answer is tickle, tickle, tickle. Tickling arouses you. Tickle you. Tickling you arouses you. And I mean that like consciousness. I don't mean that like in a sexual way. Tickling arouses you. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Like you're taking a nap and then I tickle you and you wake up. All right, read that. So we're talking about memories, new memories. So the answer is hippocampus. Hippocampus deals with memories. All right, stimulating a rat's amygdala. So what does the amygdala do? The answer is fear and aggression, amygdala. So remember that. You can damage. Think about this. What do you get when you damage an amygdala or your amygdala is small? What you have then is a psychopath, somebody who has no remorse, somebody who doesn't feel emotions like fear or shame. But if you stimulate it, you get the opposite. You get aggression. All right, read that. Infantile amnesia. The answer is amnesia. You're dealing with memory, the hippocampus. All right, not the easiest question, but I think I explained it pretty well, but it doesn't make it an easy question. All right, read that. The answer is hypothalamus not only can cause you to be hungry, but it can satisfy that hunger. Satisfy, satiety. The answer is B. I know. This is a tricky question. Okay, just big word. But hypothalamus does control the endocrine system. Okay. All right, another amnesia, hippocampus. Moving right along. The network of structures involved in emotion, motivation, and memory. Hippocampus, amygdala, motivation, hypothalamus. The answer is the limbic system. Following a mild stroke, Sam ate much more than normal and gained 50 pounds within a year. What part of the brain was damaged? The answer is the one that deals with hunger, hypothalamus. Okay. Which of the following structures is most closely associated with communication between the central nervous system and the endocrine system? Endocrine system. The answer is hypothalamus. All right, that's enough for this video. Thank you.